So that's Chicago Style from my album back in 2014, Message in Blue. And probably my favorite groove in playing live, playing anywhere, is kind of the medium tempo shuffle. And I also was inspired to write this along with my friend Bill Brichta, who we've been writing together for quite some time. We've written a number of tunes over about the past 7 years, including a lot of the songs on Blues from the Inside Out. But I'm from Chicago. I'm a proud native Chicagoan, and I wanted to write a song about the city. And then I was also thinking about the fact that I've heard Sweet Home Chicago about 4,000 too many times. And I kind of wanted, humbly to write something as possibly a substitute, and I've heard a couple people cover it, but maybe someday. Anyway, it mentions a lot of my favorite bluesmen: Otis Rush, Sunnyland Slim, Magic Sam, Junior Wells, Buddy Guy, Mighty Joe Young, many of whom I got to play with and got to know. And I kind of came up with this line. I didn't come up with it, but I decided to use this line. It's kind of a variation on the box shuffle pattern. Which is much more common, so I just changed it around a bit. And I think there might be some little Milton tunes that has that. And I know Anson Funderburg from Texas used it with Sam Myers. I also like having a tune with a bridge, so I added a bridge, just a pretty much standard bridge where it goes to the 4, back to the 1, 4, back to the 1, 4, 1, and then 2, 5. And then back to the line. So the basic main body of the song is just a 12-bar blues in G, and I kind of incorporate that line along with some ninth chords. And then I solo. And, my approach to soloing is, it's always about the feel, and it's about the phrasing, and I'm not the kind of guy that's going to play a flurry of really busy notes. I kind of compare soloing to having a conversation. And when we have conversations, we like to understand what we're saying to each other. We like to understand each word, each sentence, each phrase as best we can, especially if we're trying to really make a point. And when I play, I really want my music to make a point and to reach people. So I try to phrase in a way that, I don't consciously I don't plan out notes, but I do try to leave space, let the music breathe, and play with the feeling of the blues, which is the key to playing this kind of music. And John, maybe you could share a few things about your approach to this type of song.
Yeah, I guess my approach is different playing it in a duo setting here. We've played it a lot with the whole band, with Harlan on bass and Marty on drums. So it really changes what the approach that I would use as a piano player, because typically in this kind of a setting, I'm almost thinking of my left hand more as dedicated to playing bass. So when you're playing that box shuffle line, ultimately I should be doubling it with you. Sometimes I stray from that, but it's tighter if I double that same line. And then when you're playing other chords, I'm free to play various different bass lines with my left hand. I don't necessarily always stick to that pattern. Whereas if we're playing it with Harlan playing bass, I wouldn't be doing any of that stuff with my left hand. I'd be playing either chords while I'm soloing with my right, or some kind of a left-hand pattern that's not too low as to get in the way of the bass guitar.
Yes.
I mean, that's always a standard one, but there's also the those kinds of things. Or in the context of working with a bass player, there's also concepts that you'll play using kind of your both hands simultaneously as to play the same sort of concepts, whether it's chords or voicings or you know, the same kind of melodic stuff in octaves. Oscar Peterson was famous for that kind of thing, you know.
So kind of doubling, kind of imitating right hand, left hand at the same time.
Yeah, the octave thing is imitating it, but with chord voicings, I'm not necessarily playing the same notes in my left hand as I am in my right. You know,
Yeah.
some of those big jazz chords, it's not necessarily just doubling the same
Sure.
thing in a lower and higher register. It's a kind of a separation of the different elements of the chord across the span of two hands.
Interesting. And talk about your vocal approach, because you know I brought this song to you about 7 years ago, and
Yeah, I remember. I remember chopping a couple lines out of the lyrics in order to make room for the bridge, in order to, because the words in the bridge, I believe, was originally just another verse. I was like, well, why don't just that line is redundant, so just let's get rid of that and shorten these lyrics to 8 bars so we can make a bridge out of it. But the one guy that actually influenced some of the vocal approach that I take to this is a guy that I was sort of thinking of because we both worked with him a lot, which was Tad Robinson.
mm-hmm.
So it's maybe the way the melody moves is maybe a little more soul influenced than some of the more traditional blues. And that's a rich heritage that we have in Chicago with a lot of the soul singers like Tyrone Davis, and that's not real straight ahead blues, but it's something that we've always heard on the blues scene, you know, growing up in Chicago. So
Interesting. All right.